Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all well and safe during this challenging time. I'm Lijie from CBD Secretariat. I'm taking care of national reporting and planning at CBD Secretariat. Hi, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank colleagues from UNDP and UNEP, particularly Marion, for organizing this webinar for small islands developing states, which have been facing challenges in the monitoring and reporting on the implementation of the convention and its strategic plan. We believe that this webinar is important while we're starting a new decade and discussing how we're going to address challenges ahead. Today, I would like to share updates on the process of developing the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and the key recommendations from the thematic consultation on monitoring, reporting, and reviewing of the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, held in February this year and in Rome, Italy. It is our hope that this introduction will provoke thoughts about how the monitoring, reporting, and reviewing system under the convention could be enhanced to strengthen the implementation of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. First of all, I would like to share an update on the process of development of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. COP15, held in Egypt in November 2018, adopted a decision 14/34, which established an open-ended working group to develop the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. Co-chairs were designated to lead the process under the supervision of COP Bureau. Mr. Bazil from Canada and Mr. Ogawa from Uganda were appointed as co-chairs. In addition, SUBSTA, SBI, and Working Group on Article 8J were requested to contribute to the development of the post-2020 biodiversity framework within their respective mandates. The decision covers various aspects of the process, including the principles, requirements for documentation, and communication. Among others, the decision encouraged all relevant stakeholders to contribute to the relevant consultation undertaking at the various levels. A few other decisions adopted by COP14 also provide guidance for developing relevant elements of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, such as mainstreaming, capacity development, and resource mobilization. But I will not go into the details of these decisions. I only focus on the 14/34. So what has happened so far? The first regional consultation began in January 2019, and so far all the regions have had their own consultations. Meanwhile, a number of the thematic consultations have been organized to address specific issues important for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, such as resource mobilization, capacity development, ecosystem restoration, synergies among the related multilateral environmental agreements. There are also a few other consultations organized by relevant organizations and stakeholders, such as those organized by IUCN, FAO, and OECD. More importantly, the working group on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework has had its own, 2 meetings so far, one in August of 2019 and another one in February 2020. Based on the inputs from the first meeting, the co-chairs had prepared a zero draft of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework for negotiation at second meeting. Based on the proposals and the views received from the second meeting, the co-chairs now are preparing the first draft of the framework and will present it for the further negotiation at third meeting, originally planned for July, but now probably will be postponed to the January or February of next year. OEWG2 also requested SBD 24 and SBI 3 to provide further inputs to the development of the global biodiversity framework, such as baseline for setting targets, indicators for monitoring progress, and monitoring, reporting, and review mechanism. What is coming next? We still have a lot to do. First, more thematic consultations are being organized or going to be organized, such as on sustainable use, the role of cities and subnational governments, and of course, you know, mostly through the virtual meetings due to the pandemic. So as said that above, the SBD 24 and SBI 3, which are most likely to be held in the October of this year, will provide the more inputs to the developments of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework by addressing specific issues requested from OEWG2. Then OEWG3 will continue negotiating the first draft of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. Then the co-chairs will present the outcome from OEWG3 to COP15 for the final consideration and adoption. In between, a few important meetings will provide a strong push to the process, such as the United Nations Summit on the Biodiversity to be held in September this year in connection with the United Nations General Assembly, and the General Assembly of ICN to be held in January of next year. So, what are the goals and targets or content in the zero draft may be interested to the SIDS? You know that I haven't got a chance to look at the latest draft being prepared by co-chairs. So I only can present something from the zero draft, which was presented to the OEWG2 earlier. And also I want you to know that the wording on these slides are the summary or the extracts I did from the text of the zero draft. Is not exactly the wording in the zero draft. I know that there are a number of the proposed long-term goals and action targets that may be particularly interesting to the small islands developing states. These are the targets related to the marine protect areas, control of invasive alien species, and climate change mitigation and adaptation. And you will see here, one of the action targets for 2030 is to protect at least 30% of the marine areas by 2020. So this is a very critical target for small islands countries. And I also wish to inform you that a group of small island developing states have formed a coalition to speak for SIDS at the negotiation and highlighting the challenges faced by SIDS on the implementation of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, in particular the resources, capacity development, and monitoring and reporting. Next, I would like to share some recommendations that emerged from the thematic consultation on monitoring, reporting, and reviewing held in February this year in Rome. The consultation had a mix of the presentations, group, and plenary discussions covering all the existing elements of the review approaches under the convention, including national biodiversity planning, national reporting, indicators, voluntary peer review, and a number of the related conventions and organizations like UNFCCC, UNDESA, WTO, OECD were invited to introduce their approaches or practices in the monitoring, reporting, and reviewing. And probably the CBD will draw the inspiration from their approaches and try to see how they could improve the approaches of monitoring and reporting, reviewing in this convention. With regard to the national planning for post-2020 period, all countries were encouraged to adopt targets and commitments in line with the post-2020 biodiversity framework. To ensure alignment of national and global targets, all countries and stakeholders encouraged to register commitments in line with the global biodiversity framework. And also consultation online the need for countries to complete the revision of their MBSAPs quickly so that they gave more time for implementation. And the consultation also suggested standardized guidance provided for the revision of the MBSAP so that, to help to the identified gaps in commitments and facilitate monitoring and implementation. And also country highlighted the importance of allocated resources for implementation of MBSAP. For national reporting, countries stressed that the national report should continue to be the main instruments. And then for the next decade, countries are expected to submit the 2 regular reports, probably complemented with the voluntary update review reports to be submitted every 2 years. And national reports should focus on those content that will be used for global review and stock taking, such as progress towards the global targets and goals. And then some countries suggest that using a common set of indicators for reporting to allow comparability and global aggregation. Country also highlight the importance of increasing synergies in reporting to related conventions. For global review, and 2 global stock taking were proposed, one probably in 2024 or 2025, focusing on the identifying the commitment gaps and then the actions needed. And the other one probably in 2028 to further enhance the implementation. So SBI 3 will pilot an open-ended forum where a number of countries will be invited to share their progress in the implementation of strategic plan for 2011 to 2020. So if this forum proves working well, the COP15 could adopt this as one of the review approaches, and the future meetings of SBI will probably provide an opportunity to all countries to present their reviews or review updates. And of course, the purpose of such review is going to facilitate mutual learning among the parties and enhance the implementation. Countries also suggested strengthening the voluntary peer review, in particular getting more countries volunteered to be reviewed, and the findings from the reviews will be used for global planning and global decision making. Some countries propose the establishing bodies, such as Implementation Support Committee, to review the quality of the MBSAPs and national reports. So we know that the SIDS have particular challenges in this regard, monitoring and reporting. And because we know that a number of small island developing states have not completed their MBSAPs and 6 national report in time. So this could be the constraints in the resources and capacities, and could also be lack of the monitoring system and data management system. So we hope you will highlight these needs for capacity development and resources in the relevant future discussions. To let you know that the report of the thematic consultation held in Rome is available on the CBD website. And if you have time, you could look at the report, and some of detailed recommendations are there. And maybe you could look at them and think about how you're going to enhance this and make proposals and suggestions at the future meeting to enhance the monitoring, reviewing, and reporting under the convention. That's all from me. Thank you so much for your kind attention.